3 Deeper Cuts, hoo-ha! Good afternoon. Welcome to the podcast. 3 Deeper Cuts, your lifestyle magazine for the practicing surgical pathologist. I am your host, Chuck G. Every week we bring you something to think about, something to read, or something to listen to. 3 Deeper Cuts is brought to you by formalin-fixed paraffin embedded tissue. Emphasis on the formalin. Because without the high exposure to 10% buffered neutral formalin that I experienced during my residency in St. Louis, I wouldn't be able to think of half of the crazy things that I write about here at 3 Deeper Cuts Publishing. And if you're not a pathologist and you're listening to this right now, thank you and welcome. A couple of announcements for today. Good week. Couple of ups and downs. Had some strange cases, let me tell you. So check this out. I had a 70-some-year-old female patient case, came in with an upper lobe nodule some time back. I'm not going to tell you the exact time frame because we are law-abiding physicians in the 3 Deeper Cuts community. So it was a spindle cell neoplasm. Bland, but atypical. Confined to the lung in a smoker. So what does the community surgical pathologist think of? Common things being common, sarcomatoid carcinoma. When the cancer cells become spindled, elongated. Solitary fibrous tumor. Granuloma. What else? You want to make this interactive? You want to make this an interactive podcast? You want to jump in? Anybody? All right, let's keep going. All right, so bottom line, this thing was negative for every antibody under the sun, except weak, patchy expression of a general keratin, weak, patchy expression of low molecular weight keratin, aka CAM 5.2, if you want to get fancy, Horacio, and Claudin 1. Who the hell uses Claudin 1? And what really threw me for a loop was it was blazing positive for PAX8. I didn't know what to do. I sent this to the experts over at the Brigham, and they guided me very nicely. So apparently this is not an uncommon thing. I guess I shouldn't say that. It's maybe a couple times a year thing. It's been a while since I've been at a large academic center, but apparently people that have some vague history of cancer of the kidney or renal cell carcinoma that's never been diagnosed, it can show up in the lungs. We've all seen that when it looks classic, but you don't always see it when it's transformed into a sarcomatoid carcinoma. So there's that. What else? Lupus anticoagulant. Some false positives. An angry janitor chased me down the hallway screaming, "You gotta say thank you for holding the door." That was a strange night when that happened, dude. It was one of those meal cart ladies, and it was late on a Wednesday night, I believe. And I think I was just coming back from a Frozen. Must have not been that late. 6:30. And my head was down. I wasn't even looking at my phone. I was just kind of looking down. It was not a big deal, but she was very offended that I didn't say thank you, that she held the door, and I didn't even know she was holding the door for me, so I felt bad. And it had been some time since I really saw someone fly off the handle like that. I almost wanted to give her a hug. my dear, I got a soft spot for the custodial staff. True story, my first job as a junior in high school was a janitor at an outdoor mall in Lincoln, Nebraska. And of all of the entry-level jobs that I've had, that's actually probably one of the better ones, especially if you're the personality type of a pathologist. Because if you're a custodian at an outdoor mall, particularly in a random town like Lincoln, Nebraska, where there's just not much population, you don't have to interact with people that much. And that's an attractive quality of any job, but definitely for a high school kid making $10.50 an hour, it ain't bad. What else? A friend of mine in Spain got my letter, real buzz, renewed my spark for written correspondence. So I don't know if I've shared a video with you guys, but I have a typewriter, an Olivetti Latera 32. I believe it's a 1973 edition in mint condition. So whenever I feel that screen fatigue, you feel me? That screen fatigue where you've been spending a little too much time on your phone throughout the day, that brain drain, neural fry, if you will. I find that writing on a typewriter grounds you back into the here and now, and I think it is a magical machine to take you back to the here and now. And my prediction is that typewriters are going to come back in a big way. I think a lot of people have brain fry, and there's no way around it. What are you going to do? Throw away your iPhone? What are you going to do? Stop signing out cases from your work computer? You're going to stop checking Gmail forever? No. But I make it a point to make dates with myself. Make appointments with myself where I'm forced to be in the present moment. One of those moments, I am here with you right now, recapping some ideas from the last few weeks. And at other times, either with a pencil and paper or with that beautiful typewriter and that satisfying click-clack sound. Look, I know I'm kind of a weird guy. I'm leaning into it. Just leaning into it. What else? Ripping ass in close quarters. 6 months ago, I was on a Taco Bueno streak. Queso and chips on a Tuesday night. Plus, I'm lactose intolerant. Not a good scene the next morning when the VP of the group walks into your office to drop off your morning cases. Little awkward. A thick cloud in that office, my friends. Would not recommend. What else do we have? So this week's episode of 3 Deeper Cuts is, from time to time I do these grab bag episodes. And if you don't like it, you can switch it off. That's all right. But I'm not going to lie to you. Making consistent, high-quality podcasts for the working physician in the throes of community practice is not easy. You like to think that they're all bangers, perfectly well organized and such, but that's not the case. But what I do is I try to rotate the content. So once in a while we'll have a grab bag week. The other day we'll have an essay week where I read you an essay hot off the press. Other weeks will be a book report style podcast. Those are actually my favorite, but it takes some time to read a book, when you got a full-time job. So let's keep going. I got another piece of paper here. 5 mistakes that I made in the first 3 months of writing online and how to avoid them. Number 1, not writing enough. Mel Brooks, I think it was Mel Brooks, or I'm blanking on the name. The guy with the cigar. You know what I'm talking about? Why am I forgetting his name? It'll come to me. Used to write for 4 hours a day. I am of the belief that anytime you can squeeze in, whether that's 10 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, anytime you can squeeze in, if you're working a full-time job and you got a family to worry about, the time that you can squeeze in for yourself to write is a gift. So give yourself that gift. Number 2, not writing consistently. So skipping days, going off here and there. I know that there's plenty of successful writers that don't write every day. And take everything I say with a fistful of salt because I'm a freelancer. I'm winging it, figuring it out as I go. But I will tell you this one thing that I learned from physics back in the pre-med days, right across the street from Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska. Physics. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. So if you write every day, you're going to create momentum for yourself. You're going to switch that habit on in your brain, and you're going to have a good time. Put it on the calendar. Check it off as the days go by, and never break the chain. Number 3, writing angrily or sarcastically. So here's the thing. Nuance doesn't always come across in the digital world. You may think something's amusing or funny. Your significant other may get some giggles. You may have even made the office laugh. But most of the time, I have found that nuance tends to get lost unless you're face to face with someone. People can't always sense that, so the reader just gets confused. They can pick up on the anger or the irritability, or if you're lucky, maybe 1 out of 100 will see the sarcasm. But generally, it just confuses the reader, and your point does not come across. So this is an opinion that's evolving. I've been spending more time in X spaces lately, meeting different people, writers from all over the world. So my opinion is going to evolve, but that's where I'm at now. And okay, next, number 4, checking X in the morning. So there have been times where I logged on to a Spaces first thing in the morning. There was some good that came out of that because there was people that I wanted to meet and see if I enjoyed their vibe or if I wanted to get to know them more. But generally, I feel that it's a bad idea to check X or any social media for that matter first thing in the morning. And the reason I say that is I think that you have a finite number of matchsticks to use in that sphere. It's a very attention-grabbing sphere, and it's easy to go down those dopamine traps. It's easy to get sidetracked, and it's easy to use up those matches early in the day. That's the best analogy I can come up with. So save your matches. You want to come onto that platform from the mindset of a producer and a friend. So like you're showing up to his spaces. But I just find if you have a full-time job, you don't want to burn all your matches that earlier in the day because you have important clinical responsibilities to focus on, and it's better to maybe wait until either 12 or maybe 2 p.m. before that. Now, I will say that in order to get your replies in and do the whole reply guy thing, there are some days where I just start out and knock out a few in the morning because otherwise I might not have any time to do it. But I try not to make that multiple days in a row. I try not to make it a routine thing that I'm on X first thing in the morning to protect the physiology. All right, number 5, not going for enough walks. And that was not just a recent mistake. That was probably a mistake that I made most of my life. Not going for enough walks. That could apply to a writing problem or a clinical problem or any kind of computer problem. But thinking that sitting at your desk is going to somehow lead you to the solution is folly. I've made that mistake. And I really feel for people who are in jobs where they physically cannot leave. I think it trains. So if you're stuck and you don't go for a walk or you don't shift your attention and then come back to the problem, you're just grinding yourself down and you're wasting time. Something magical happens when the body is in motion. When you get the blood pumping a little bit, when you change your surroundings, you look at something far away, you hear the birds outside, listen to some music, do something different, have a conversation, for crying out loud in person, you're going to have a good time. And you're going to come back to your desk and you're going to find some of the solutions that you were struggling to have before. All right, let's keep going. Ideas. All right, I like this one. This is a little something I'm working on. I might reread it on a future episode, but here we go. It's just, I think it's like, I got a page and a quarter here, so more work to do this. What are you? An essay by 3D Percuts. I'm in my second year of community practice as a surgical pathologist. This is not my first go-around as a physician practicing independently. In my past life, I was a psychiatry resident in San Diego. After 6 months, I bailed, or rather washed out of the program, and I went to the fleet as a general medical officer. For a few years, I carried this as an administrative black mark. And so did the pencil-pushing bureaucrats I would have to navigate through over the next several years. In the end, this circuitous journey into landing at my current position was the best thing that could have happened to me. Here's why. You go into medicine for the reason of helping people. If that's not your core mission, e.g., you prefer manipulating or exploiting people, that's fine. But no judgments here, and you probably should not be in medicine if that's what you're into. Again, to each their own. The decision to be authentic to the world of your true nature gets distorted during the long training period it takes to become a licensed physician in independent practice. The young training doctor must complete a series of clerkships in all the core disciplines of medicine: obstetrics, psychiatry, surgery, pediatrics, family medicine, internal medicine, the mother of them all. On each of these services, you are evaluated, both subjectively and objectively. Both styles of assessment require you to become the specialty for the duration of the time you're on the rotation, typically between 6 and 10 weeks at a time. If you do not become the profession, you will run the risk of appearing disinterested on clinical rotations and in the OR which is disastrous for your subjective evaluation. The information tested on objective exams, shelf exams, is such that you cannot entirely memorize it because they are testing you on clinical patterns with long story-like vignettes, which can only be experienced rather than memorized. This being in contrast to the modality of learning which is required during the basic science years of medical school, which absolutely requires volumes of rote memorization. Therefore, the sharp medical student and the survivalist approaches his or her rotations with an attitude of complete immersion into the subject at hand. You are literally scrubbing in on surgeries, albeit for rather tedious functions, though there are moments where you may be clamping arteries or retracting organs, both of which require you to be interested, if only for the sake of the poor sap's life you are a part of for the duration of the surgery. So what does this all mean? To survive, the survivalist medical student must learn the habit of being inauthentic. The common phrase is, fake it till you make it. While this strategy is wise and effective and ethical for the patients you are treating, it can lead you astray in the work you ultimately end up pursuing for the rest of your career. Wow. Okay, I haven't thought about these ideas in some time. So let me hash this out a little bit more. What am I getting at? So what drove me to get these ideas on paper was paulgraham.com. If you're listening to this right now, like just pause it and go to paulgraham.com and look at Paul Graham's essays. One of the essays is called How to Do Great Work. And the prerequisite for the essay is designed for people who consider themselves to be ambitious people. And I think he even says that in the first couple paragraphs, is that if you are not ambitious, none of this applies to you. I think it's safe to say that anybody who goes through all the trouble of taking pre-med requirements, doing all the shadowing and community service, to apply to medical schools, in some cases multiple times, to study for a very challenging entrance examination, to go through the interview process, to endure extended periods of financial uncertainty during said application process. I think it's fair to say that most medical students are ambitious, at least to begin with. I think in some cases, the arduousness of the training can beat out the ambition. So it's critical that you protect that fire that you had when you initially started. Otherwise, you're just a drone. You're the type of person who's going to bend the knee to the hospital system. You're the type of person who's going to be droning on about work-life balance. You're going to bend the knee to the next healthcare corporation that wants to employ you under the guise of work-life balance, only later to exploit you when you're not expecting it. I am here to fight that mentality because I noticed it happening to myself when I myself was a bureaucrat working for the government, arguably one of the better run bureaucracies in government, but a bureaucracy nonetheless. Bureau of Medicine and Surgery for the United States Navy. And I was drinking the Kool-Aid. But I still had that fire to get out of the military and start a residency. And I think these ideas about being inauthentic during medicine, I think that it's very dangerous to pretend to be someone you're not. And I don't know what the right answer is. This is why I'm putting this on paper. And shoot me an email if you've got a better answer. Because I found that to survive medical school, you really have to become each rotation. You can't half-ass things. Like, they're going to know. And it's irresponsible. Even if you're not interested in surgery, you still have to pay attention because you never know when you might be in some scenario where you have to suture. I mean, this happened to me as a general medical officer. Some guy walks in with a laceration. Dude, I haven't done this in years. Anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. I mean, there's going to be stuff that you're less interested in, but you kind of will yourself into it. And my friend Ushwin and I, Ushwin's an oncologist, we used to psych each other up, either on the phone or in text messages. Sometimes we shoot each other an email. But there's actually like a line in Michael Jordan's biography where he talks about this. He would use even the smallest slight and use it as motivation. Like somebody hated on you or some attending gave you a dirty look. You just make stuff up in your head to keep that fire going, to pretend to be interested in a subject because you know that the stakes are too high and the curriculum moves so fast that you will get left behind if you don't step up. So when I was in med school, we didn't have Anki either. Anki is a total game changer. That's a flashcard app. I probably would have done a lot better in school if I had that years ago. But even paper pencil flashcards, man, it's a game changer. But you got to want it. You got to want it. And then when you get past that, in the last 2 years, I've been more honest with myself than I ever have been. And I only agree to events, social engagements, and professional opportunities that I'm genuinely curious about. I tend to naturally be drawn to projects that involve writing and speaking because I feel there's literally no downside to cultivating that skill set, especially in pathology, when most people will just shy away from that. But make no mistake about it, I'm very introverted. I just force myself out into uncomfortable positions as a means for survival. Being a better writer and a better speaker is all upside. All upside, my friends. Improving your English, all upside. Learning a new language, all upside. And if I could go back to Latin America and relearn the Spanish that I learned as a medical student, I would do that too. But right now, I've got family concerns. Not concerns, I just have to be around for my kid. But in a few years, he's probably not going to want me around anyways, in which case, you'll find me in Nicaragua. All right, moving on. Next piece of paper I got in front of me. We got some fresh Cappy here. Thursday, 11/2/23, 9 p.m., Dallas, Texas. Here we go. So there I was rounding the corner of this OR in the catacombs of this godforsaken hospital built on an ancient Indian burial ground. The surgeon was there with a hammer and a blade. The automatic door opens. There lies the poor patient, skull agape, pus spewing from the open wound of the cranium. What do you say to that? There she was, a 35-year-old woman, minding her own business and cursed with an unsuspected brain abscess. The MRI was taken a few hours after she presented to the the ER. There is a cystic lesion at the right frontoparietal cortex, and I couldn't tell you what's going on in there. The radiologist says it looks like an abscess. Cannot rule out neurocysticercosis. The pork tapeworm. Before I'd left the frozen section laboratory, I looked at the infectious diseases tab of the laboratory results page in the Epic medical record. For some stroke of good fortune, the electronic record opened without any complication, and I was merry. Let me tell you, working doctor in the trenches of community practice could be so lucky. HIV negative, P24 antigen negative. There was a handsome amount of brain tissue in the container. The 2 scrape preps I made yielded patches of neutrophils with the wisps of brain tissue. I was looking for the sea of macrophages that my friend warned me about in residency. He was the neuropathology fellow at the time, and he told me to read about tumefactive multiple sclerosis presenting as a cystic mass lesion in the brain. Buddy, I was worried at first. This is the type of thing the rat-onc lady will irradiate into next week unless you tell her not to. Around these parts. These great southern plains, once roamed by the fierce Comanche Indian horseback warriors. The land is now laced with outpatient chemotherapy infusion centers and plastic surgery clinics. This isn't cosmetic medicine. This is the real thing. I went back to the container and scraped the rest of the brain tissue back into the chuck. Let's freeze the rest of it, I told the histotech. Let's make sure there's no neoplasm in the darn thing. And no lymphoma either. This is not the day that I'm going to miss CNS lymphoma in a 30-something patient. Nope. The rest of the tissue came back just fine. More brain tissue with dense aggregates of neutrophils. So I told the lab to run an AFB and a GMS up front on routine processing of the case. Glad this one was straightforward, because many times it's not. In the morning, there was a brain surgery frozen too. This was a twofer kind of day in the old hospital, riddled with ghouls and ghosts from another time. From the times of ancient Indians all the way up to the years where Cabeza de Vaca wandered these mysterious plains of the high desert in search of God or what have you. In the morning case, there was a poor man with a cavitary lesion in the left lung who presented with multiple cortical masses in a pattern highly suspicious for metastatic disease of an unknown primary. I took one look at the smears and it reminded me of squamous cell carcinoma, complete with keratin. Why am I talking like that? That's stupid. So I phoned a friend and he agreed. Walked to the OR and reported back a diagnosis of non-small cell carcinoma. Just another day in the life. Would you believe it? Only an hour later they called me again for a Whipple resection of a case I'd signed out earlier in the month. The lady was young, a cool 53 years, if I remember correctly. They keep getting younger and younger. It makes you pause for a moment every time you have to make one of those heinous diagnoses. It's a death sentence, pancreatic adenocarcinoma. The specimen was resting on the table. I opened it, inked it, washed out the bowel contents, successfully retaining some duodenal contents on my shirt. But no matter. Then I probed the common bile duct and the pancreatic duct, found the ampulla, and noted a bulge in the duodenum just proximal to the main duct. With a sharp bench blade, I sectioned the specimen to show a firm, white, gelatinous but solid mass which was growing up into the wall of the duodenum. The glands under the microscope were deceptively bland, and there was mucin all around. In my head, I was worried about overcalling adenocarcinoma, as I was expecting to see more angulated glands with the stromal reaction. Again, I erred on the side of caution, phoning a friend to render a final diagnosis. There's no question that there's a lot of stuff in this game that you simply cannot prepare for. It just smacks you in the face like a solid pressed softball, the same kind you use in games. This is why I think you got to slow down. Just slow way down and enjoy the process, because at the end of the day, you're going to be 75 years old on death's door, and none of this shit is going to matter except for the times You sat and enjoyed exceptional experiences brought on by your work. This is the miracle of writing and why I encourage the practice to all younger folks I've had the privilege of living and serving with. I don't know where I'm going with it. I'm trailing off here, but bottom line, it was a tricky day in Frozen. I'm not going to finish the rest of this. I was clearly, I don't know if I was drinking when I wrote that, but I think the point of that is that I had two really weird neurofrozens in the morning, and then I had a Whipple in the afternoon, which was a deceptively bland adenocarcinoma that was invading up into the duodenum, and I think it was a younger person, like under 50 years old. So that was a hot day. So then those are the words that came out on the page that day. So this has been an impromptu episode of the 3 Deeper Cuts podcast, your lifestyle magazine for the practicing surgical pathologist and enthusiast of human disease. 3 Deeper Cuts, as always, is brought to you by 10% buffered neutral formalin, because it smells just so fine. That and xylene. Seriously, if you don't enjoy the smell of xylene, are you even a pathologist? Seriously? Get the fuck out of here. All right, guys and gals, thanks for listening. I enjoyed making this for you. I enjoy sitting here with you. You are the reason that I make these podcasts and this weekly newsletter. So until next time, be well and stay curious. 3 Deeper Cuts, Chuck G out. Peace.